Okay, hi guys, and welcome back to Unpacking Familiarity. I'm Nazly, and this is the guest for today's podcast, Vivian. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, thanks for having me. My name is Vivian, and I am a current IE master's student here in Madrid. Naz and I actually met at a career fair a couple weeks ago for marketing. I think we were in line for Ogilvy.
I had a water bottle in my hand from one of the other companies, and she was like, "Where'd you get that?" And then it just sparked a conversation.
Yeah.
And I thought it was so random as well because you're a master's student, you'd live and I genuinely thought you were just one of the normal, just a bachelor in the same year, and I was like, oh, she's older, but she doesn't look it.
No, I get that all the time. But no, I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Of course.
And let's dive right in.
Yeah. Okay. So where are you from? Where'd you live now? What brought you to Madrid? And just a little bit of a backstory of how you ended up here, I think.
Yeah, of course. So I grew up in California. It's about an hour south of San Francisco.
Okay.
And I was raised by Taiwanese parents, and my dad was a software engineer in Silicon Valley. I then moved to New York when I was 18, so I lived there for about 8 or so years, did my bachelor's there at NYU, and then in between, I lived for 6 months in Taiwan. Then I also lived in Amsterdam for 2 years, and then now I'm here in Madrid doing my master's. So
You've been all over then.
Yeah, I really have. I don't know, I want to say I'm a third country girl, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
I just have, I don't consider myself completely American. I don't consider myself fully Taiwanese either.
Yeah.
And I'm always a mix of everything in between. So I halfway belong or quarter belong to a bunch of different places.
But that's cool. Would you want to live in more places? Is that something that you want to do, or is it
So I'm 29, and I'm obviously don't look the part, but I'm going to turn the big 30 next year, and I'm kind of in this state of my life where I'm ready to settle down.
Okay.
Of course, I wouldn't mind traveling here and there, but I want to anchor back to a place where I can, call home for a very long time.
Would you go back to the U.S.?
No, not necessarily. I think just for me, on a cultural level, I really love European values and the work-life balance, and the U.S. is just, it's not the same.
I think from what I've heard, it's more just you're working to live, not
rather
really
than rather than living to work.
Yeah.
And I don't know, the political situation, which I don't want to get too much into, it's just not really the best right now. And I think living in Amsterdam those 2 years from 2021 to 2023 really kind of shaped my perspectives. But also to say, I have a lot of friends who are really happy in the U.S., so,
it's not
just
closed
because
off?
No, I wanted to say because they're obviously really happy for me that I'm here, and some would even say that I'm jealous, but I've also had to tell them that, just because your dreams are different than mine doesn't mean they're any less important.
Yeah.
And if being in New York, which is a great city, of course, is where you want to be, then I fully support that, and I encourage anyone to go.
Yeah.
I just feel like I've graduated from that New York chapter now officially, because I don't see myself there. I truly don't believe it's going to give me what I need long term.
So
you
got what you
5,
needed
10 years.
from there. And
Exactly.
I wanna be somewhere else.
Yeah. I'm not really about that kind of hugely fast-paced city life anymore, and I'm ready for something different.
I think being
a little bit
here,
something
it's
in between.
very slow-paced, I would say, living in in Spain.
It's still very cosmopolitan.
Yeah.
But, people are having freaking siestas and having
Everything's
dinner
closed half the time.
having dinner at 9, 10 p.m.
Yeah.
That's something I'm still getting used to.
Yeah, for
but it's
sure.
just a lot more relaxed, and I'm getting the best of, again, the urbanness of life, but also a little bit of the small town vibe, just with people's outlook and everything, all married into one place. And so I don't feel like it's as intensive as my New York journey.
Yeah. Okay, that's cool. You told me when we met, you were like, oh, I think everybody should move to New York at some point. You were like, I think that would be great and everything like that.
Yeah, I still stand by that. Yeah, it's an amazing city. You know, I learned so much. I was 18 at the time when I moved, and granted, I'm a little bit embarrassed to say that before I moved, I think my perception of the Big Apple was a little bit glamorized by
romanticized.
Carrie Bradshaw or Gossip Girl. Even, I mean, what was the show? Friends, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Carrie Bradshaw had the most low-paid job ever, and yet she was somehow able to afford a studio in West Village.
Yeah.
So, I also thought that maybe girls wore Louis Vuitton or Louboutin stilettos to run errands, and that's obviously not true.
Not in New York, I don't think you
so
can walk that much.
Being 18 at the right, for sure. So being 18 at the time, I truly learned that lesson early on of just like the idea of living somewhere versus the reality of living somewhere are two very different things that I wish I had known earlier, but I think being 18 at the time, that was the right time to learn that lesson.
Yeah.
Because moving forward then, when I went to Taiwan for a bit, and even before I went to the Netherlands, I did a lot of research.
Yeah.
And I encourage anyone who is thinking about moving somewhere to not just look at social media and not only talk to people who live there and love it, because people who love where they live will naturally give a very biased answer. Because the city already caters to certain interests that they have. And their needs, but their needs might be different from yours, and so if you have different priorities, the city might not give the same resources to you. So also allocating time to talk to people who maybe they didn't find that the city completely fit their needs is equally as important.
I think I realized that when I moved abroad initially, because I had a lot of friends that went to different places, and so many of them dropped out and changed locations and tried 2-3 different unis before they found somewhere that they actually enjoyed. And I got lucky because I liked Segovia and Madrid straight off the bat, but not everybody kind of had the same experience. So I think it just depends on what you want out of somewhere. It's kind of just enjoy that.
For real. And also, of course, if you have the time and the financial means
to switch around,
not even that, but before you officially move, go live in an Airbnb for 4 weeks. Use that time to try to recreate that routine you already have from back home. And check out the grocery store, do a gym routine.
I think
try
that's a
different
big
communities.
Thing. Because I think being on holiday is very different to living somewhere.
Absolutely.
And a lot of people I don't think realize that, because once you've gotten into a routine and you see what your life's actually like, it's not the same.
No, completely not.
At all.
No, and making new friends, you don't really think about, that's not your priority when you're traveling, because you're with your family. Right, you're just enjoying, and it's only temporary. It's like maybe it's a few days, or it's just a few weeks. But if you're living there and if you're not in school and you're just moving there for work, of course you have your work people, but they're not necessarily people that you want to hang out with when you're done with the 9 to 5. So where is that community? Where are you going to build that community off of? Is that through going to the gym? Is that through joining running clubs? Is that through doing a pottery club, finding girls who have same common interests as you? Where is that going to be? And that takes time to culminate.
How is that for you? Like coming here, for example, I think the culture, meeting people that are maybe Spanish, don't really speak the language, is a little bit difficult. So was it easier for you because you were at IE, so it's automatically an international community?
I think so too. I do think it's definitely IE. If you move anywhere for school, that's basically cheating.
Set.
That's cheating. Because they're like handing you the silver spoon for the networking.
Here,
and the
you have a million
here
people.
Are your friends. You get to pick and choose. This is a glorified buffet of friends that you can pick from. But when I moved to Amsterdam and Taipei, no, not at all. Again, I wasn't in school. I didn't have exactly a job lined up, especially in Taipei. In Amsterdam, I came as an au pair. So I was slightly different, but still just
I mean,
as
it's
difficult.
also like kids, not
Yeah,
really, like,
yeah.
people your age.
Exactly.
Probably.
Well, in Taiwan, I came knowing that I had family already. And I was like, oh, I'm not going to prioritize meeting new friends because I have my family. And then it hit me like a truck one day that I don't want to spend time with my family all 7 days, the entire week.
And it's also, you want to, I think, be around people your own age and people that have the same interests as you at the same time.
Precisely. So I was like, wait, I need to make new friends. And also I made the small mistake of, dating a guy there, and like he was my entire attention and social calendar for the first 4 weeks when I arrived, and I realized when things didn't work out that I should have
closed yourself off.
Right, I should have spent time meeting new people as well. So I truly felt alone for those first couple of weeks because I was like, whoa, where do I go? And I think sports was definitely something that saved me.
Okay.
Yeah. So I had asked around, and I had met some expats living in Taiwan, and they said that a lot of them were part of a spike ball club.
Okay. What's spike ball?
It's it's a round net, and then you've got people it's kind of like a volleyball game, but centered around in this small net, and it's yellow.
Yeah.
It's really fun. I think you can have up to 4 people, to 2 teams.
Okay.
4 people. And your goal is to just try to smack the ball out
of
bounds.
Random,
so that people
but
can't
you managed to
Yeah. But because I joined that group and then I met those 2 founders, that they were able to introduce me to a girl who became my best friend when I was there. She's this Nigerian British girl named Vanessa. I've unfortunately lost a bit of touch with her, and I do think about her every day. She's so hard to reach. And I say this with love, okay? So just in case you read this. And it was through her, then it trickled down to...
It's all right, don't worry about it at all.
So we trickled down to meeting other girls, and then formed this coalition of, I think, 7 to 8 girls, and we, did a beach trip this one time, just really bonded, and they literally became my core group until I had to leave.
Why'd you leave?
I left because my visa was up. Okay. So I was just there on a U.S. passport, but I was able to stay for long because I was a child of a citizen. Okay. And this was during COVID times, so...
It was kind of like you couldn't really...
I knew it was somewhere I didn't want to be for the rest of my life. I thought that maybe I'd get a job there, and I was like, this country's too tiny. It's the size of a banana leaf in the Asian Pacific, and also the expat community was way too small. I would bump into my ex's friends all the time, and so I was just like, no, this
I
is
need to
not...
leave.
Yeah, I was like, I need to leave. And then, in the program, I was a little bit older than some of the other girls, so there was this gap in terms of maturity and life experience, and also work experience. And so I didn't feel like I connected with the girls that were also au pairing in neighboring in neighboring cities and streets and whatnot. I decided to find my own friends in another way. Okay. So this time I resorted to Facebook groups. So I don't know if you know. Yeah, so there's a community called Girls Gone International, GGI.
Oh, I had no idea. That's cool.
Yes, I think they have one here in Madrid.
Oh, okay.
I've just had no use for it because I'm in school and
you've been able to meet
I have enough people on my plate to juggle. But GGI have respective groups for different countries around the world, including New York and London.
That's cool. In big cities.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it's just a platform for girls to, post and introduce themselves and see if there are other people who would be interested in doing stuff with them, etc. Cool. So there was a Swedish Ecuadorian girl named Anya who had posted on the group. She was open to meeting new people for coffee and stuff. And so I managed to grab coffee with her. And it was through her that I didn't even realize I had planted a seed at the time. Because then a couple weeks later, she invited me to a girls' dinner with a bunch of her other friends. And then I became friends with those people. And then through those friends, then I met their friends of friends. And then I met their friends of friends of friends, and etc. So it kind of blossomed into this huge
community,
right? And then network with people doing you know, who are much closer to me in age and have much similar ambitions, and we're doing very cool things with their job that I also got to learn a little bit about through spending more time with them. And really proud of myself for doing that, because it is a much slower process than, you know, making friends with people from school, because I don't work with them.
You don't see them every day. You have to make the effort, I think.
Right. Yeah. I think it was twice or three times the effort than the effort that I'm making through meeting people at school. And it definitely took months as well.
Yeah.
But I'm so happy.
It's worth it.
No, it was worth it, because I went back to Amsterdam last week for a networking event through IE, and I got to reconnect with a lot of those friends that I've made through my time in Amsterdam, and it was really fulfilling, because I hadn't talked to them for a while, but I honestly, it just felt like we were picking up where we left off, and
I think that's the best.
And knowing that we had spent so much one-on-one deep time together, that I really appreciated how much we've built in terms of a friendship over these past couple of years, even if though maybe I haven't been the best at keeping in touch because of school and everything.
I think it's harder as well as you get older and you meet more and more and more people. You realize how many people you kind of have to keep in touch with. But it's so nice when I go back home and I see people that I haven't spoken to in so long, and I'm like, oh, it's still there. You know what I mean? And it's just nice to catch up and have that connection.
Exactly. And I think actions speak louder than words too, because you know, this one girl, she grabbed drinks with me on Saturday, and we had to cut it short because she was super tired. And then she was like, listen, we really need to catch up, so can I see you for brunch again the next week, the weekend before you leave? I was like, yeah, of course. I'm so happy we did, because clearly there was so much more that we had to say to each other, you know, and it's just a reminder of how much we enjoyed our time together and stuff, you know. And I would also say, to meeting people sometimes, especially when you're not in school, you also have those moments where maybe you put yourself in a situation where you're meeting new friends, but then you leave the event or activity not having met anyone that you truly liked. Yeah. And those are also some really disheartening and tough moments. You feel super discouraged, almost like job hunting, really. Yeah. Like friend hunting, and you come home empty-handed. You're like, oh, there wasn't anyone that I could truly connect. And so I definitely had
moments like that.
For sure. At least 2 times that it happened. I joined a meetup event, and I think it was a picnic they had in the north of Amsterdam, and it was beautiful weather. I had also just broken up with another guy, and I decided that I was not going to mope and cry at home for the rest
you were like,
of the day.
let me get out.
Let me just meet new people. And I went, I talked to people, they were nice, but I didn't feel this sort of genuine kinship that I had.
Yeah, it was like, okay, good night, but
nice
not
to
really
meet
gonna
you,
go anywhere.
but I don't know if I'm actually gonna, I don't know if you asked to grab coffee, I'm like, I don't know. And that made me even more sad coming home. Yeah. Because I was like, I tried, I made an effort, I spent all this energy being out there for 2 days. Right, it didn't pay off. Yeah. So those moments happen from time to time, and it's just good to be prepared.
I think this is nice for me to hear, because I'm going on exchange next semester, and it's like I came here. I had wanted to move to Spain, be completely by myself, and I was like, none of my friends are coming with me. Yay, like I have the chance to grow and whatever. I came here, half of my friends followed me from home. I had instantly like a group of people where I was like, okay, well, I know a bunch of people already, and I made the effort to kind of expand outside of my like little group, and it's raining. Outside of my little group, but it wasn't really like, you know, the same. Yeah. And I think moving abroad, I don't know where to get like anything to put on my head. Moving abroad, I realized I was like, okay, this is great because I can. You brought it, and
we're gonna do this.
So I moved. I'm moving abroad, and I was like, this is going to be difficult. And I had a friend last night talking to me, and she was like, I didn't want to apply to Asia because I was like, well, I'm not going to know anyone there at all. Yeah. And she was like, are you not worried at all about making friends? I was like, of course I'm worried. Like, I don't speak the language. I'm moving to a place all by myself. Yeah. But hearing this and knowing that it's like, yes, of course, there are going to be times that are tough and blah, 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 but there are like ways.
Yeah.
It's making me feel a little bit more like comfortable. I'm like, okay, well, it's
good.
possible. It'll
I'm
be
glad.
fine, you know?
No, I mean, one thing, especially, and then social media is such a huge culprit with this, but like glamorizing being abroad, we're not fighting rainbows and ponies the whole time.
Yeah. It's not easy.
No, for sure. And actually, this reminds me of a concept that I came across when I think it was an NYU alumni online event from some European country, and they had some recording that they had available on the internet.
Yeah.
And this woman had taken inspiration from the famous Einstein equation, E equals mc squared. So she kind of changed it to fit the expat context, and I think you're going to really resonate with this.
Go for it.
So she said that we experience what's called expat equals managing change squared.
Okay, that's cool.
I think, so when I came across it, I was like, wow, this could not be more relevant. Right. Because part of expat, actually not even part of it, the whole point of expat life is managing changes, and I'm talking multiple changes, 5 to 6 changes at the same time.
Yeah, it's not like, oh, you're just moving away from your family.
And it's only for a couple of weeks. No, this could go on for months or maybe even years.
It's like languages, cultures, like people around you, new house, life, like routine, everything I think is just completely different.
Completely.
And
not
it's
to even
so
mention
overwhelming
the food,
as well. Oh the
and
food.
Supermarket, right? Like I felt like even in Spain, or having lived in 2 countries already before this, that I had to be prepared. I was like, okay, in Spain they'll probably have different kinds of foods, and maybe it's going to take a while for me to figure out what baking soda looks like, or
and it's in a different language as
right?
well.
And you're looking like a complete idiot with your phone trying to Google Translate if that's the equivalent of, you know, Downy dish soap or washing detergent. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, all these changes at the same time.
For me as well, it was moving to a very small town. So the supermarket is very far away, or you have the tiny little mini mart, and it's like you go there and I'm like, well, you guys have nothing edible, nothing, and I'm like, what do I do? Like, what do I eat? How do I, you know? And it was very difficult at the beginning, and I think at the start it was like takeout, because I was like, well, I don't know what to do, and then I was like, well, this isn't healthy, like I can't keep this up.
No, and at some point you have to you have to be courageous, and you just have to be like, let me try something new. Yeah, exactly. And go like, oh, I really want to make my own meal, but I'm scared to buy pumpkin, you know what, right? Like, I mean, it's just an example, and this could be relevant for someone out there, because they really want to buy pumpkin, but they don't know how to say pumpkin in Spanish, and I still don't know how to say
calabaza.
Right, calabaza. Thank you. You know, and then there's also these unspoken rules, right? Like I remember watching a YouTube video of an Australian expat living here in Spain.
I think I saw the same one.
James Blick, right? Yeah. So he had a video actually teaching people how to navigate unspoken etiquette here in Spain when you're at wet markets or farmers markets and those mercados, right? Yeah. And one thing I wouldn't have known unless I watched this video, but he actually was telling us that you cannot touch the fruit on the fruit stands. There's a general rule, right? You can point, and then you tell them what you want, and they grab it for you. So you cannot touch it. And then you can also tell them, like, if it's a banana or if it's a pear, or an avocado, anything that requires a bit of ripening, you can tell them, hey, can you please pick 2 avocados for me that are ready to eat today? Listo para comer, right? See, I didn't know that. Yeah. And I know back in the U.S., you just touch whatever you want. You grab everything. And actually, it's the same in the Netherlands as well. Like, if you go to Markt or Albert Kuipt, you know, they don't care as long as you pay for it. But you don't have to wait for their permission to pick out the things for you. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So
there's a lot of, I think, different things. And I think it's not even when you move abroad, it's like when you were saying, making something with pumpkin. Like, you're not just expanding, like, the typical things that you think you're expanding. It's like also you're expanding your like palate. You're eating different things. There's so many kind of changes that you have to like come to terms with. And I was like, this is so different because like for my religion, for example, ham is the biggest thing in Spain. I don't eat ham.
Yeah.
So I'm going to restaurants, I'm like, so what do you have on the menus that I can't eat? I'm like, well, I can't eat this. Yeah. And then it's like, I ended up eating so many things that I hated as a kid. And like calling my mom and being like, oh, I just made this. She's like, are you serious? Like, do you know how hard I tried to get you to eat that? I'm like, yeah, but there's no other option. Like, I had to try it. I had to.
No, that's right. That's
I discovered so many more things that I think I liked and things that I was like open to. And I was like, okay, this is good. Like, I'm growing, I'm developing.
I know.
And I think etiquette's like a massive thing, because I'm assuming also when you move to Taiwan, it's like completely different kind of cultural norms than Europe, than America. Like,
oh, absolutely.
You went to 3 different continents.
I mean, with Taiwan, that's really interesting, because ethnically, I'm completely 100% physically Taiwanese.
Yeah.
However, I grew up in the States.
Yeah.
So
culturally,
on a cultural level, I more so empathize and relate to westernized culture.
Yeah.
And to be more specific, I'd say 40% American, 60% European at this point. Okay. Maybe back in the day, more so 90% American.
Yeah.
That's definitely shifted. And when I go to Taiwan, I grew up speaking Mandarin at home. Okay. Actually, it was my first language before I learned how to speak English. Mm-hmm. But I go to Taiwan, and people look at me and they're like, okay, yeah, she's Taiwanese, but the makeup's different. She didn't dye her hair brown like the rest of the girls. I'm considered quite tan back home, which is completely bizarre. My voice is also considered deep compared to other girls. They love to speak at a really high voice, especially in the service industry. I think it's just part of how it is. They want to present themselves as really cute and ultra super feminine. Okay. And my sense of femininity is different. Yeah. And you could even say it's a little bit more masculine than the typical kind of culture there. Yeah, exactly. Okay. Right. So it's just very different. So they look at me and kind of like, well, she is, but is she? Like, what the F are you? They look at me, they're so confused. And, I like jump into a taxi and I'll tell them, please take me to this and this intersection. As soon as I open my mouth, it's like a dead giveaway. They're like, you're not from here. They're like, your accent, it's different. Like, where'd you grow up? I said, I grew up in the U.S. And they're like, that explains everything. I think it's a big thing as well. I'm assuming even when you speak like English to a lot of people, they'd be like, oh, she doesn't speak Mandarin. Or they'd be like, she does not understand what we're saying. I definitely have pretty much an American accent, but I've also, I think, especially when I first came back international accent. When I came back from Amsterdam, I'm positive I had a friend tell me that I sounded partly like Dutch, Swedish, and British. Like maybe that's Anya's influence. Honestly, I have a very strong feeling it might have been. I mean, I also do love the way she speaks, so I probably picked up on some of the nuances. Yeah, a little bit. And also, I've been told I speak a little bit quieter. Okay. Than I did before, and. I have a feeling I definitely picked it up, and I don't sound as nasally as people from LA or whatever. Which honestly, this is something I'm actually really proud of. You're like, I'm glad I lost that. Yeah, when I jumped on the plane from Amsterdam back to New York, when I lost my work visa that summer, I just had a bunch of Americans sitting in front, next to me, and behind me, and it was the folks behind me that. God, really got on my nerves. You were like, wait, is this what I sounded like before I moved? Or is this how I never realized how nasal Americans sounded. You realize it when you're not from there. Yeah, when you spent enough time away, you're like, wow, we sound horrible. and they are louder. You said that you spoke quieter because I think I realized when I came here as well, and then there would be an American sitting next to me, and I'm like, oh my gosh. Like, I turn over to the and I'm like, seriously? Yeah, they really do. And Spanish people are loud, but but it's a different kind of loud. Yeah. No, it really is. Yeah. And I remember they were nonstop talking about, their trip to Italy. Yeah. And some of them went to south of France. Yeah. They're, but they also just went to the places that Americans typically go to most, like Florence, Rome. They haven't explored. Like tiny little random towns in Europe. Yeah, like tiny towns in Tuscany, I don't know, maybe Luca or something.
Yeah.
Or, you know, if one of them had said, oh, I took the time and I visited Puglia instead of the Amalfi Coast, I would have been more impressed, you know? So, can't even talk about that. And then speaking about work, which was very typical of Americans.
Yeah.
They were yapping, I think, the entire time as the plane was ascending into the sky. I've never wanted to shoot myself in the head because I was like, I just want some peace and quiet.
Like, you guys are so loud.
They're very chatty.
Yeah, they are.
The small talk thing is definitely something we're really good at.
I think it is, and it is a very friendly kind of environment, because I think it's, my dad always says, he's like, Americans are so nice. You're never going to be able to sit there and not spark a conversation. They will talk to anybody. And I think coming here, you realize that that's very different, because at least my first kind of semester here, I was like, I don't think I met a single Spanish person. And it's like, they are very friendly, but they won't necessarily speak to you first. It's very different, I think, the kind of energy here. And then it's like, you visit France and you're like, wow, these people hate me. But in the US, you kind of never feel that, but then you kind of sometimes leave conversations like, but what did we talk about?
It's a very surface level type of conversation. And what I hear a lot from European friends of mine is that I think one of the biggest complaints is that the surface level talk, as nice as it is to fill in the silence of, say, you're waiting in line at a bakery, you know, to buy a loaf of bread, it's not genuine. You're never going to see them again. So why make such an effort? And that we say a lot of things that we don't mean, which I do find a bit true. Like in New York, actually, I've even noticed this, and I personally struggled with it in my bachelor's. Because I wanted to meet and grab coffee with people that I found interesting through class. And I'd be like, hey, Tanya, let's grab a coffee. She's like, I would love that. And then that's it. We talk about this multiple times throughout the whole semester, which is, 3-4 months. And then it never happens.
Yeah, you never grabbed the coffee.
And I look back and I'm like, if you genuinely never wanted to grab coffee with me in the first place, why did you say that?
Yeah, because you didn't really have to. Like, you could have just kept up the small talk and moved on.
Exactly.
But it's like, why suggest it? I think for me, like, when we met, and I was like, wait, I had, like, a really good conversation, and I went back to all my friends, and I was like, oh my god, I met this girl online today, like, blah, blah. I was, like, super excited because I was like, I've been trying to, meet more people, and I realized my dad drills it into my head. He's like, networking is so important. Networking is so important. So when I called him that night, I was like, like, she came up to me because I was holding a water bottle, and then we started a conversation, and then she asked me for my LinkedIn. I was like, this is super cool. And then I got this podcast idea, and I was like, well, this is kind of like a perfect, like, little way to kind of start a conversation.
Networking isn't all about talking about work. It's
not. You just get to know people.
Just finding that common point that you have. And if both of you, it takes two to tango, right?
Of course.
So if both people are open-minded and curious about each other, why not? I think life is too short to say no and continue only hanging out with the same group of 5 or 6 friends. And
I think had we not, like, spoken again, it's like when we were texting this morning and it was like, oh, we're doing kind of the same project. We're in completely different, like, stages of our lives, different degrees,
we have the same professor.
Yeah, we have the same professor and same project. And I was like, this is crazy.
That was mind-blowing.
This is crazy, but it's like, had we not kind of spent the time to talk a little bit more, we wouldn't have been able to kind of just connect on that small level.
Absolutely.
Which is just, I think, you never know, really.
Yeah, exactly. But no, I mean, being a little bit more genuine with what you say, more intentional, I think
it goes a long way.
Absolutely. And that's something I really admire about my Europeans and my European friends specifically, because
you didn't
setting up a time to grab coffee is not something we just talk about in passing. We mean it with every fiber of our heart, and we make it happen, and that's what strengthens our relationship over time. And I wish that Americans, again, not every American is like this. This is a huge disclaimer.
It's
like,
a massive stereotype.
Yes, and I'm proud to have my friends say I'm a huge exception.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, you're not. You don't fit that stereotype.
No, not at all. Not at all. If I say I want to grab coffee with you, I
will
genuinely want to grab coffee with you. And if it doesn't happen, it's because you don't want to grab coffee with me. So I feel like that's something I wish they took note. And
Yeah.
I was also, I had I bumped into these 2 German guys in Amsterdam last weekend, and I had told them, because one of the things they told me right away that also was so refreshing to hear was that he was like, well, I work at this company and my friend works at the rival company, so we actually blood promised each other we would never talk about work. I kind of figured later on they both work at consulting companies.
Okay.
So it's very important not to talk about work, especially because they're rival consulting companies. And I was like, wow, that's so refreshing. You know,
yeah, like
you guys are right. You guys are working in such great companies. And the fact that you guys really commit to not talking about work, I admire you for that. You know, I spoke to them about how when I think it was the week after I moved back to Europe from Amsterdam that I attended my friend's wedding.
Yeah.
We have to put up the
the umbrella
again. But I attended my friend's wedding.
Yeah.
And there was a guy from the groom's side. He was kind of interested in me, and we were dancing on the dance floor. And I had only talked to him for like 10 minutes or so it was not very long.
Yeah.
And then he asked me out of nowhere, oh, by the way, so what's your 5-year plan? And I looked at him like he was genuinely crazy, because I was like, I just moved back from Europe and you're asking me what my 5-year plan is. First of all, I don't know
my 6-month plan.
I don't even know what I'm having for breakfast tomorrow, let alone what I'm doing next week, because I don't even have a job lined up. And you know, like, I wouldn't have been at this wedding if I had found a job back in Amsterdam.
Yeah.
You know, like, moving back here was not plan A, it was plan B. So I was really shocked that he asked me that. Of course, there's no, you know, bad intentions behind asking it. He was just trying to get to know me, but I was so shocked.
You were like, what?
Right, and even, you know, I have dated quite a few people here in Europe, and this is something that nobody would ask me on the first date.
Especially
you know?
not here. I think it's very like, whatever happens.
Right,
it's very
like,
go with the flow.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, what do you like to do in your spare time? What's your favorite movie?
Things happen later, I think, here.
Yeah.
Than probably in the US and with people like from back home, and it's very, I think,
it's
a different.
It's just all like, KPIs. Well, the spreadsheets that you were working on yesterday, whatever. And, you know, well, granted, I really didn't understand how bad of a habit it was of ours as a society until I left, because, you know, again, I had mentioned my father, he was a software engineer in Silicon Valley. And so growing up, you know, my parents went to, you know, dinner parties at friends' houses and whatever. Even the dads would still talk about work. Yeah. And you're not even it's not during work hours. It's not during anything. So you don't have to talk about this, right? It was a Saturday, for Christ's sake. And, you know, then we have the kids' table, and then the moms, they would talk about schools, like what school is your kid thinking of going? Is it either Harvard, Stanford, Yale, Berkeley? Or...
And you're like, really, guys? And we're 5.
No, yeah, exactly. So I'm just so happy I'm not in that environment.
But I think it's cool, because I don't think that's maybe something that you would have realized had you not taken the step to move abroad. Like, there's a lot of people who kind of stay in the same place and they don't. Obviously, we're privileged enough to get the opportunity to leave, which is incredible. But the fact that you did, you realize so many things that, like, you wouldn't have realized if you stayed in the same place.
No, and I mean, again, if you have the financial means and the time to one moment it's raining, one moment it's windy. I think I'm gonna try putting this away and then see what happens. But I really do wholeheartedly encourage anyone who has the time and the financial means to have these sort of experiences, because you really get to see the world from a different perspective, and you're also more independent in a lot of ways. And as an expat, having been an expat multiple times, I think one of the biggest qualities that you need to have to survive and thrive as well is adaptability and resilience.
Hello. We're filming a podcast for my class.
Hi.
Thank you.
Thank you. Having the ability to adapt and be flexible.
Yeah.
There's so many changes going on in this world, and also, harking back to the whole E equals MC squared, managing change squared. If you don't have, the
No worries.
flexibility and the ability to adapt to constant change, having this unyielding nature, thank you so much, having this unyielding nature, it's not going to help you move forward. It's not going to help you open up to new experiences or new people. So again, being flexible and staying open-minded, that's something I think one of the best parts about being an expat is when you have those moments where you're proven wrong.
Yeah.
And it's a surprise to you. Like, you're like,
it's a little humbling. It's a little surprising, but
absolutely.
It's always like, okay.
Yeah. And then or you're like, oh, I thought that person was super mean because, they're of certain culture demographic,
just typical stereotypes.
And then you realize that they're the sweetest person in the world, and when you go to love them as a person, then you're like, wow, I'm so happy I gave them the chance to prove me wrong. Like, there are things I don't know that I don't know.
Yeah.
Or, I had no idea this was the lesson I needed.
Yeah.
I had no idea that I would love this vegetable that I ate
growing up.
Right? So it's such an interesting
trying
experience.
new things, I think, and kind of not allowing your expectations to hinder you from just genuinely growing. It's you can't just be or your mindset or your whatever. I'm instantly, it's you kind of have to accept the fact that you need to grow and change and be open to it, because otherwise it's you're just holding yourself back.
Yeah. No, there's always
so
room
many
for
things.
growth.
Exactly.
Yeah, always room for growth, and being humble about it. So you never know. I watched, I think it was Jonah Hill's, she produced this Netflix documentary with his therapist. It's called Struts. Actually, I really recommend anyone listening to this podcast to also take a listen or watch it when they have time. And one of the really cool things that his therapist shared was just, to be able to navigate life, you need to be able to know how to handle uncertainty, pain, and hard work.
Yeah.
With this triangle, if you can seamlessly, or if you have the tools, the resources to navigate this, then you're going to be fine. Yeah. And that's especially true of expats, because we deal with all of this
at once,
all at the same time. Yeah. Maybe if you're home where you're in your comfort zone, there's only one of those three things that you're dealing with, or two of those three things. But for sure, as an expat, we deal with all those three things at the same time. Yeah. I will say that's not something everyone can handle.
Yeah, I think that's true. Yeah. Anyways, let's finish on a high note. What's one piece of advice, the biggest thing that you wish somebody had told you before? I know it's hard to pinpoint one. Yeah. But just one thing that you would be take this. Because for me, it was, for example, coming here, I was told a million times, I was learn the language. Never learned the language. Biggest regret. It, struggling with conversation, not fun at all. And that was my thing where I was learn the language, learn to enjoy your own company. I think that was a big thing, and just try to get into a routine. But I don't know what it would be for you. The biggest kind of thing that you were I wish someone had told me.
Learn how to enjoy being by yourself. Yeah. Yeah, because you will have a lot of those times, more than you want and more than you think. Yeah. And you will have days where maybe you don't have friends who are available to make social plans with you, and you have a free night to yourself. What are you going to do? Yeah. Are you going to choose to spend it at home watching Netflix, which is totally fine? Of course. I'm not shaming that at all, because I do that sometimes. I desperately need it. Yeah. So are you going to do that? Or are you going to go to a jazz club by yourself, which I've also done, and I've met
cool.
friends
I
before.
think it's sometimes hard to be at least for me at the start, where I was I don't want to eat by myself. This is embarrassing. I don't want to whatever.
Hard.
And it's difficult. But I realized after I moved, I was wait, I kind of like this. Sometimes I'm you know what? I need a date to myself. I'm nobody talked to me. Nobody would. And I'm I just want to.
Yeah. No, take dates.
Go alone.
Take dates.
Take yourself out.
Yeah, take yourself on a date. Last Saturday, I had pretty much most of the day to myself. I went for a run with the running club in Amsterdam, and then after that, I met some friends as well. We got coffees, we did a post-coffee run, and then I had spent some time in Jordan by myself, just walking. I had my book with my Sudoku puzzles with me. I had my headphones, and the sun was out. It wasn't raining.
It wasn't raining.
I really enjoyed my time to myself. I bought this ring on my finger.
It's super cool.
Found some really interesting shops, flagged them on my map so that I know I can go back next time. And I met these two German boys that I had mentioned because I was taking a photo of a cafe I used to go to, and they were drinking beer, and they just randomly waved back at me. Well, waved at me, and I waved back, and then they waved back at me. And then we bumped into each other a couple hours later on that bridge where I took the photo. Yeah, so just, like, embracing what's to come, and being okay with being by yourself. I think just not a lot of people are brave enough to do that. And I will also admit I have a hard time eating by myself, but then people watching, it's something you can just so fun to
watch
do. Yeah,
and think to yourself.
How often do we actually sit down and slow down?
Yeah.
No, we don't do enough of that.
No,
we're on our phone, we're drowning in our scrolling, and we're not seeing a beautiful small moment. Like maybe there's a couple that just came back from their, 20th anniversary dinner, and they're holding hands, and it's just,
and she has like flowers in her hand, and you're like, wait, this is super cute.
Or
and that's it.
I love dogs, so a cute dog passes by. I used to play this game with a friend of mine where if we see a dog, whoever yells out dog first, that's a point. And I got a little bit out of hand, and we had to set some rules where it's like, okay, if we're in the middle of a conversation, we cannot just yell out dog. Like, if we're both not talking, then we can start playing that game, and then it goes like furthest goes like 2 blocks out. Anything more than that, you can't count because that's too far away. So he was a little bit taller, so he had the height advantage. But I play that game now sometimes by myself, and
it's your dog, big dog, and you just remember,
you just remember good times. Yeah, and it's just such a good time to reflect. And maybe if it's not you spending time with yourself outside, if you're just at home, it's a good moment to reflect on what went well this week, what didn't go well, what was something that you liked, what was something that you didn't like. Then you know how to adjust your life moving forward and optimize it to a lifestyle that you're proud of and that you enjoy, and that you are not going to regret when you look back 10 years from now, and just know that you lived the life that you wanted, and that you did whatever you could to make yourself happy. So
I have a friend who's like favorite kind of little thing, and she's been doing it since we were in high school. One of my best friends is she always at the end of every day would text us and be like, what are your 3 G's for the day? What are 3 good things that happened to you today?
Yes.
And during like a period where you have exams and you're super stressed and you're not doing too well, sometimes you're like, I would look at her and I'm like, I can't think of 3 things. And she'd be like,
you always
what
can.
did you, exactly.
Even
she was
on a
like, what did
day.
you eat that you really liked? What did you, like, what was something that you saw? Or, like a dog coming up, you got to pet the dog. That made you happy in that moment.
Yeah,
like little kind of things like that.
exactly.
And she was like, there is always something, and it genuinely opened up my mind ever since we started when we were like 16, 17, is now like whenever I think back, like when she's not here, so I'll be like sitting and be like, what are 3 good things that happened to me today? Or and I'll text her and I'll be like, oh, what are 3 good things? And it's just a little like point of connection and positivity that you can bring to every single day.
Absolutely.
And I'm like, this is nice. This feels good.
Yeah.
But yeah.
No. Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm sorry the weather wasn't optimal.
You're lucky you had an umbrella.
We are lucky we had an umbrella.
But yeah, no, thank you so much.
You're welcome. And best of luck with your exchange coming
you.
up. I hope you can take away some of our nuggets today.
I think
and apply
I can
it.
for sure.
And I think that'll make you even more charged and excited for your next journey.
That'll be super cool. I'm very excited.
Who knows what experiences and learning lessons you'll have.
No,
but embrace it all, and I can't wait to check back in with you.
No, exactly. I want to see where you end up after, coming here, you're staying in Europe, moving back to the US, like what's gonna happen, I think.
Same to you. We'll keep in touch.
For sure.
All right.
Okay, thank you guys.
Bye.
Bye.